Back in April, I released a video where I played Pokemon Platinum version using only NU tiered Pokemon. The video performed really well, and as of writing this script, it is currently the third most viewed video on the channel and top 5 in likes. I said in the video to show it some support if you wanted to see more, and you all showed out for it. So, here I am again with another challenge, this time for a much harder game than Platinum. In today's video, we will find out if I can beat Pokemon Black version using only PU tiered Pokemon. The rules of this challenge are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to bother going over things like many others would. I will note though that I am basing this off of Smogon's Gen 5 rankings. I will not be using modern Pokemon rankings for obvious reasons. In Pokemon Platinum, the lowest tier of Pokemon was NU tier. However, Pokemon Black added another tier below NU, the PU tier. There is another problem we're going to be faced with in this video. In Pokemon Black and White version, the Unova region is locked to only new Gen 5 Pokemon, meaning that we only have access to 10 Pokemon for this run, unless I want to use Pokemon in the Little Cup or NFE, which stands for Not Fully Evolved tier. For the spirit of the challenge, I want to avoid these Pokemon, not because they make this easier, but because they would make this harder. If you're interested in me doing more videos like this one, or even a Little Cup or NFE only video, make sure to let me know down below and show this video some love by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Building a team for this game is going to be difficult. Pokemon Black and White have some pretty tough battles in the late game, and the only Pokemon available to me come with hardly any bulk. I could run a Bulldor in the early game, as he's in the NFE tier, to get an early reliable wall. However, the types that we have to deal with in the late game and the power creep in this game means Bulldor won't be a solid long-term option. The other problem with Generation 5 is that it curbs your experience gain based on the level of the Pokemon gaining the experience. This also swings both ways though, as an underleveled Pokemon will gain extra experience upon winning a fight. I can use this to my advantage to train more than 6 Pokemon in this run should I need to. I am writing this script before I've started recording the challenge, so all this is just speculation and planning. Now that we have the basic planning out of the way, we are free to jump right into the challenge. Let's do this. It really doesn't matter who I pick as a starter, as it'll be getting benched in the beginning anyways as soon as we get our first team member. Just like in the Platinum video, I don't plan on keeping the starter around for very long. I also don't like the Gen 5 starters. This might be a hot take, but I think all the Gen 5 starters are boring. To be fair though, they're much better than anything that Game Freak has given us in the recent games, so I won't complain about them too much. There are 3 things that Pokemon Black and White are obsessed with. The first being the word bother, the second being the word bodyguard, and lastly, rival battles. And boy are there a lot of them in this game. Right out of the gate, we are tasked with back-to-back rival fights against Sharon and Bianca. For the sake of keeping this video under an hour long, I will only briefly touch on the rival battles as they come up. Not like they're anything special anyways. You have to fight Bianca 5 times and Sharon 7 times. This does not count post-game battles. Look, say what you will about the rivals in this game as characters, but 12 rival battles is insane. And that doesn't even factor in all the end fights. The first battle is against Bianca, one of the weakest rivals in the entire franchise. Bianca doesn't know shit about ball, and never really puts up much of a fight in these games, and I lost. The Tepig crit me and I lost. The Sharon fight was no problem at all. His Snivy only took us slightly below half health. Shortly after the rival battles, we're able to capture our first team member. I capture a Lillipup and name her Laith. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. Just for the record here, I will not be capturing multiple of the same Pokemon trying to find optimal natures and IVs. The first thing I see is what I will try and catch. Laith is adamant in nature, which is an incredible nature for her to have. I spent some time grinding up Laith and we make our way to Accumula Town. Afterwards, we bench our starter and leave Layth as our sole team member. In Accumula Town, Ghetsis, the head of PETA, is saying something about something, but I speed through it because I've played this game 100 times and don't really care. After his speech, we battle N, but his purloin is garbage and goes down to our Layth without issue. Shortly before we get to Driftveil City, we get ambushed by Bianca. She goes down to Layth with no problems. This will be a common trend in this game. Speaking of rival fights, have you had enough of them yet? Well, hopefully not, because you have to fight Sharon again in a school. He also goes down without issue. Now that the NPCs are done and dusted, we can move on to the first gym battle in the game. Our first gym battle is against the most mid companion of Ashes in the anime, Silent. Nothing much to say here. Layth just bit everything to death and earned us our first gym badge. Also, getting the TM for workup is really good for early game. After we leave, this random girl we've never met before takes us off the street and up to her room to help her experiment with something. The weird part is that nobody in her family questions this. Anyways, now that the first gym is out of the way, we go to the dream yard and capture our second team member, Audino. I name her Maria. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. Maria is lonely in nature, which is actually really fitting for her character. The ability itself is not ideal for an Audino, but it could always be worse, so I'm not complaining. Audino is always a staple on my Iron Man teams whenever I have the chance to get her. And don't worry, you'll see why throughout this video. On our way to the second gym battle, Layth evolves. The second gym in the game can cause you problems if you sleep on it, so any additional firepower I can get is very much needed. Speaking of firepower, we have to battle Charon again. His team has no firepower on it, but I needed a transition into the Charon fight, okay? He goes down without issue, and we can move past the filler arc where Bianca wants to be someone's bodyguard. Hey, let's play a game. Take a shot anytime Bianca says the word bodyguard or Charon says the word bother. Actually, now that I think about it, don't do that. You'll be in the hospital before the fourth gym. After the filler arc is over, we capture our third team member, Woobat. I name her Constance. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. Constance is serious in nature, which is fine. I'll never complain about a neutral nature. Shortly after capturing Constance, we move south and capture our fourth team member, a Blitzel. I name her Chie. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. Chie is gentle in nature, which is neither fitting for the character she's named after, nor her build. Zipstrika is not bulky to begin with, so losing additional bulk with no boost to her offense is pretty bad. At least her speed wasn't hit though. I'm going to be counting on her to be a speedy status inflictor throughout this game. Before we head to the second gym, we need to spend some time in Pinwheel Forest grinding up the new team members and getting them up to speed. Here's the team going into the Lenora fight. So far, not bad at all for early game. Maria is a solid wall for early game, but can we match it with a solid offense? There's only one way to find out. Let's do this. Lenora is a simple gym leader that wants to beat you by simply overpowering you. She doesn't really have a gimmick though besides retaliation and workup. I lead off with Constance, taking on Herdier. Constance uses Heart Stamp and crits the Herdier right out of the gate. She was unable to take Herdier down the next turn and gets dropped by another takedown. I send in Layth and get the Intimidate off, and then immediately hard swap to Maria as Lenora uses the Super Potion. Maria and Herdier trade takedowns and double slaps until Herdier finally goes down, but not before taking Maria down to below half health. Last up is Watchog, and Maria lowers its attack with a growl, but not before dodging a Hypnosis. She falls asleep on the second Hypnosis and gets dropped by a couple of retaliations. I send in Chie, who immediately falls asleep. Watchog starts spamming Leer for some reason, which lets Chie wake up and use Thunder Wave to paralyze it. Chie drops to retaliate the next turn, but Layth comes in and gets the Intimidate off and starts to set up some workups while Watchog gets stuck in paralysis. Layth takes down Watchog with some tackles and wins us the second gym battle. That wasn't so bad. After the gym battle, we make our way back to Pinwheel Forest, this time to complete another filler arc, but most importantly, to capture our fifth team member. Our fifth member is a Sea Waddle. I name her Nino. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. Nino is gentle in nature, which is extremely fitting for her character. As far as her build, it's not ideal. Again, taking away defense while giving her more special defense isn't very good. But I'm not complaining about anything as long as her attack and speed aren't touched. Nino is going to be the sweeper of the team, so her being fast and hard hitting is crucial to her and the team's success. I spent some time giving Nino some levels in the forest, and she evolves. I will say, it's so nice for the game devs to leave so many doctors around the many routes in this game. It makes grinding so much nicer, especially with all the Audinos running around. I wish they still made good Pokemon games. After getting back the stolen Dragonite Skull, we head to not New York City and battle Team Plasma before the third gym fight can occur. Personally, I'm not super worried about this gym fight. The team matches up pretty well against bug and grass types. However, this is a Pokemon game and things could turn south in a heartbeat. Let's see how this goes. Here's the team going into the third gym battle. Let's do this. Berg, in my experience, is either a complete pushover or a run killer for my Ironmans. His team is fast and can easily put down your team if you don't have a reliable way of shutting him down. He opens up with Whirlipede and I lead with Lathe. I have Lathe set up some workups while Whirlipede goes for Struggle Bug, which does almost no damage. This is perfect for me. I get Lathe up to +3 attack before trying to hit it with Takedown, but Lathe misses and gets hit by a Poison Tail. Lathe takes it down in one shot the next turn with Takedown, which only leaves Lathe on 17 HP. That was a bad miss. I was counting on Lathe being able to sweep, but she won't be able to now with how low her health is. Next up is Dwebble, and Lathe drops it to below half health with Bite before she goes down to a Smackdown. Chie is next, and she uses Flame Charge to do almost no damage. Chie follows it up with a Shockwave to drop the Dwebble. Last is Leavanny, and Chie outspeeds and gets a Thunder Wave off. She goes down to a Razor Leaf, but she did her job, so it's no big deal. The setup for the Degenerate strat is ready. Maria is next, and she gets off an Attract on Leavanny. Now, Leavanny has to push through Attract and Paralysis in order to attack. Maria is able to take down Leavanny with Secret Power, while it struggles with Paralysis and being in love. The worst combination anyone can have in life is being paralyzed and in love. Even with the Hyper Potions, Leavanny is no match for Maria in this state. Maria is a force of nature. Now do you understand why I always run an Audino in any Iron Man that I can? Maria takes down the Leavanny and wins us our third gym badge. That went really well. We had really good RNG on our side and we were able to pull off the big win. You know what this game was missing? Another pair of rival battles. We have a Bianca fight and she goes down with little effort. Same goes for Charon when he insists on getting his butt kicked by PU tiered Pokemon. The next gym though is no joke and has an annoying gimmick that when not properly handled can become a nightmare to deal with. Unfortunately for me, PU tier doesn't offer me much variety to work with, so Elisa is going to be a tough battle. Stay tuned to find out. Before we begin the fourth gym, we spend some time in the desert resort cleaning up the trainers. During the grind, Constance evolves. Constance won't be doing hardly anything in this upcoming gym battle, but it'll give her a nice speed boost so she can get a hit off if I need her to. I know I'm not talking about the story in this game, but the whole Bianca conversation with her dad is surprisingly wholesome. But the conversation with N on the Ferris wheel is incredibly stupid. Now that that's out of the way, we can fight N again. N isn't too tough here, just be careful of his team members with Moxie and you'll be fine. Let's just take a moment here to talk about the Nimbasa City gym. Does anyone else dislike all electric gyms in Pokemon games? Paralysis is such an annoying status condition. I don't think it should be removed or anything crazy like that. I just think that it's annoying to deal with. Having your speed and having the chance to take away an action? Yeah, enough said. Here's the squad going into the Elisa fight. We don't have a solid answer for electric types, so this is going to be a struggle. Elisa has a unique gimmick to her battle. She runs a Volt Turn core, and if you don't have anything that can either outspeed her Emolgas or tank an electric move, you are going to have your team shredded by them. Do not underestimate Elisa. Elisa opens up with her first Emolga, and I lead Chie. I have Chie paralyze the Emolga because I want both of them slowed down so that my slower team members can clean them up once I deal with the Zebstrika. That doesn't work though, as while I start having Chie set up a charge and hit it with a spark, Chie gets paralyzed from static and goes down to red health from a couple aerial aces. One Emolga's down, but Chie is not going to be able to paralyze anything anymore. Elisa sends in Zebstrika, and Chie goes down to a quick attack. I send in Maria and have her try to go for the attract to trap the Zebstrika, but it volt turns out to the female Emolga, and it fails. Emolga volt switches again to Zebstrika as Maria goes for light screen to try and soften the blows. Zebstrika takes down Maria with a couple sparks. I didn't go for attract here because I thought as soon as I did, she would outspeed and volt switch into the Emolga. I swear, the AI in Pokemon games knows what move you're going for before they pick their own moves. Maria goes down, and things are getting out of hand very fast. I send in Lathe to get an Intimidate off, and then hard swap to Nino. Nino tanks the Spark as Light Screen wears off, but Zebstrika takes down Nino with a couple of flame charges. Lathe comes back out and gets crit immediately with Volt Switch before Lathe does most of the incoming Emolga's health in a takedown, but gets paralyzed the next turn after biting it. Static is nasty. Emolga takes down Lathe, and Constance is last. Constance gets paralyzed by Static and goes down to Zebstrika after using Spark. That was a tough loss. I need to focus on keeping Chie alive to paralyze the two Emolga or the Zebstrika, all while keeping Maria around to deal with whatever's left over and to keep the screens up. I also need good static luck here for sure. Let's keep at it. Third attempt and we get this. We lead off with Chie versus Emolga number 1 and have Chie get the turn 1 Thunder Wave off. Chie sets up a charge and then gets a spark off while getting staticked in the process. Chie hard swaps to Lathe, who sets up a workup as Emolga gets fully paralyzed. The reason I swapped Chie out is because she still had enough HP to tank another Emolga hit, so I decided to save her for the second one later. I get greedy here and have Lathe set up a second workup while Emolga gets paralyzed a second time in a row. Lathe drops Emolga number 1 with a crunch and doesn't get paralyzed. I keep Lathe in to hammer whatever is coming in. Elisa volt switches to Zebstrika, who Lathe drops to low yellow health with the crunch. Zebstrika hits Lathe with the spark, and Lathe drops the Zebstrika with a crunch. Last is Emolga number 2, and Lathe goes down to a volt switch. I send in Chie to cripple the last Emolga. Like I said, Chie had enough HP to tank anything Emolga wanted to do, and she tanked the quick attack and paralyzed it with Thunder Wave. I hard swap to Maria, who shuts down the Emolga and takes it down with some secret powers to win us the 4th gym badge. After the battle, Chie evolved into a Zebstrika. While that was a tough battle, it's a cakewalk compared to some other battles later in the game, which will test my Pokemon knowledge every single turn and force me to play phenomenally in order to win. Stay tuned to see which battles end up giving me a harder time than this. Charon battle. Now that the tedious Charon fight is over, we can move on to one of the best cities in all of Pokemon, Driftveil City. If you think that I only think Driftveil is one of the best cities in the franchise because of its soundtrack, then you are absolutely 100% correct. If you don't like Driftveil's theme, then you are the problem. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. While we do the cold storage filler arc, we capture our 6th and final member of the team, Vanillite. I name our final team member CJ. Shoutouts to anyone who gets the reference. I just now realized that our entire team is all female. I did not plan this. Like I said in the beginning, the first encounter that I found of the Mon that I wanted is what I would try to capture. I would not try to hunt specific builds or abilities. What I see is what I would capture. CJ is brave in nature, which is fitting. As far as her build goes, it's not good. I do not like the reduced speed but boosted attack for a Mon that is a special attacker. At least she isn't adamant natured, so it could always be worse. We spent some time grinding up some levels for the team and take down the plasma fights with no issues. During the grind, Nino evolved again. This is big for the upcoming gym battle. So, Let's find out who watching this video is cultured. The team names are Maria, Nino, Constance, Laith, Chie, and CJ. Leave a comment down below guessing where these names came from. This is also the team going into the clay fight. Let me know your thoughts on this team down below and how well you think they'll do for the rest of this game. Let's talk about Clay here for a moment. I'm honestly not super worried about him at all with this team. We have CJ and Nino who do super effective damage to his entire team, while Maria shuts him down as a wall. Clay's team also cannot tank a hit. He has nothing but glass cannons on his team, and if you can outspeed him and deal effective damage, his team will melt. The battle starts off with Krokorok versus Maria. Maria gets swaggered by Krokorok and hits herself in confusion. Phenomenal start. Maria gets an attract off and sets up a reflect after hitting herself a second time. I then have Maria take a massive chunk of Krokorok's health with a secret power and ends up paralyzing it. With Krokorok being paralyzed and in love, Maria's free to do basically whatever she wants. Now, I could have swapped to Laith or Nino and started setting up, but Maria takes Krokorok down to hyper potion range, and I want to get Clay to waste all of his potions on a Mon that has a massive chance of not being able to fight back. So that's what I do. Maria takes down Krokorok and all of Clay's hyper potions, and Clay sends in Palpitoad. Maria tanks a Muddy Water and hits Palpitoad with Attract and sets up a light screen as it can't attack. Maria goes down the next turn and I send in Nino. Nino one-shots the Toad and takes the Excadrill to low health with a couple of Razor Leafs. Constance comes in and finishes it off with an Air Cutter, winning us our 5th gym battle. That was an easy fight, just like I said it would. Let's see if we can keep this momentum going though. The only thing separating us from getting the 6th gym battle is just an annoying cave where you get an encounter every 3 steps if you don't use a repel, and the obligatory ghost tower that you have to go through in Pokemon games for reasons we will never know. Let's just jump straight into the Skyla fight. After we fight N again, Laith evolves into Stoutland. Also, during the Ghost Tower expedition, CJ evolved into Vanillish. Here's the team going into the Skyla fight. I'm not super worried about Skyla's team. Chie and CJ should be able to handle the workload. Looking at the team though, as I said we would, we have a severe lack of a true wall. Nothing is available for us to use in PU tier, so this is the best I have to work with. Maria is my best tank, but she is not a reliable tank. So, fighting a team with power on it will cause significant problems for this team. You'll want to keep that in mind for some late game fights. Anyways, let's fight Skyla. The fight starts off with Swoobat versus CJ. Swoobat hits a hard acrobatics as CJ one-shots it with an Ice Beam after. Next is Unpheasant, and it whips up a Razor Wind, while CJ does about half with an Avalanche. I was expecting it to attack me, that's why I used Avalanche there. The next turn, the Unpheasant does a very little bit of damage with the Razor Wind, as Avalanche is able to finish it off. Last is Swanna, and I hard swap CJ to Chie, as Swanna goes for the Aerial Ace, which does nothing. Chie goes for Spark, and one-shots the Swanna, and wins us our 6th gym badge. That was easy, just like I thought it would be. Skyla is usually a pushover battle, regardless of who your team is made out of. Twist Mountain was a bit of a problem for my team, mainly because we struggle with Rock-type Pokemon, but we push through eventually and make our way to Icarus City, where we have Bryson, the 7th gym leader. This is probably going to be a very tough battle. While Ice types aren't the best in Generation 5, this team doesn't have a reliable way to damage them. Yes, Chie has Flame Charge, but it's non-stab, and Chie doesn't have the highest attack stat to make up for that. Constance and Nino also want nothing to do with Ice types. So let's just see how this goes. The Bryson fight begins with Vanillish versus Chie. Chie gets a turn 1 Thunder Wave off, and Vanillish gets fully paralyzed. I hard swap to Maria as Vanillish starts to set up acid armors. Maria gets an attract off and starts to set up screens as Vanillish keeps using acid armor. I don't have a reliable special attacker on this team, So I have Maria keep spamming secret powers while Vanilla struggles with attract and paralysis. Eventually, Maria crits Vanillish and takes it down. Next up is Beartic, and I have Maria push through Swagger and attract the Beartic. Maria sets up more screens as Beartic pushes through all of its attracts to whittle Maria down to low health. We managed to get the para off on the secret power, which helps Maria bring the Beartic down to low health while getting Bryson to waste all of his hyper potions. Eventually, Maria crits the Beartic and takes it down also. Cryogonal is last, and I hard swap to CJ to try and wall this thing. CJ starts going for mirror shots, which don't do hardly any damage, but I'm not expecting her to win the 1v1. I just want her to bring it down a peg. CJ doesn't care, however, and takes down the Cryogonal all on her own and wins us the 7th gym badge. Another easy fight. Even when Bryson's entire team kept pushing through attract and paralysis, because RNG is rigged in these games, we were still able to take him down without issue. After we take down Bryson, we head to Dragonspire Tower and witness N capturing the legendary Pokemon Zekrom. I have to fight this thing with only PU tiered Pokemon, don't I? The Dragonspire Tower isn't a hard location, so I'm just gonna skip past it. I will say though, that cutscene with the legendary Pokemon standing before N is very badass. N is one of the greatest anti-heroes in the franchise. He's not a villain by any means, but he isn't a hero either. Let me know what you think of N. I miss when Pokemon had intriguing characters in their games. After this, we have the whole arc where we have to search for the Light Stone. But because this isn't a retrospective video, check out my Taste of Nostalgia series if you're interested in that. So I'm just gonna be skipping over this. Nothing crazy happens here anyways. Drayden is the last gym leader in the game. As someone who grew up playing Pokemon White version, I'm used to fighting Iris here instead, so this feels a little weird to me. Dragon types were still crazy good in Generation 5, and easily the best type in the game. So I'm very nervous going into the Drayden fight. Between his dragons and my lack of a true wall, this fight is going to be a rough one. I can already feel it. Let's just jump right into it. Here is the team going into the Drayden fight. Let me know your thoughts on the squad down below. Comments are good for boosting the channel in the YouTube algorithm. Because I have no reliable wall on the team, I'm going to have to rely on Maria to get attracts off to serve as a pivot for the rest of the team. If Maria goes down early, we are going to be in a world of pain. Drayden likes to set up dragon dances with his team and go for the early game sweep. If you are not aggressive with his leading Fracture and his Haxorus, you will be in for a very rough battle. Drayden leads off with Fracture, and I lead with Maria. Fracture sets up a dragon dance while Maria gets the attract off. Fracture is immobilized by love as Maria gets the toxic off. Fracture loses a second and third straight turn as Maria sets up the screens. Fracture eventually breaks through the love and Dragon Tails Maria out to Constance. Drayden hyper potions the Fracture as Constance uses Air Slash. Toxic brings it down to low health. This is where I want to be. Fracture is taking massive damage from Toxic, and Drayden is forced to start dumping his hyper potions while he cannot outpace Toxic. I get greedy though and set up a Calm Mind with Constance as Fracture does a chunk of damage with Assurance and then goes down to Toxic. That was well played. Next up is Druddigon, and Constance gets off an Air Slash to do about a third of his health. She goes down to a Night Slash afterwards. Maria comes back in and gets an attract off. Druddigon gets poisoned the next turn, and the setup is good again. Druddigon keeps pushing through attraction though and brings Maria down to low health. Druddigon hits a Dragon Tail to send in Chie, who finishes it off with a Flame Charge. Haxorus is last, and I have Chie paralyze it as it sets up a Dragon Dance. Chie charges up as Haxorus gets greedy and sets up a second Dragon Dance for some reason. Chie hits a Spark for 0 damage as Haxorus crits and one-shots Chie. CJ comes in, outspeeds the Haxorus, and one-shots it with Ice Beam to win us our final gym badge. That was an incredible battle. Everything went off without a hitch, and my plan worked out perfectly. Now the game is going to start getting really hard. It's time for the Elite Four. If you think that this squad is going to take down the Elite Four and Team Plasma in the level 40s, you are out of your mind. So, after we make our way through Victory Road, we spend some time grinding up some levels for the team to make this happen. The Elite Four in Generation 5 is tough. I also don't have very many good matchups for most of the fights, so I'm very nervous for these battles. During the grind, CJ evolved into Vanillux. Here is the team going into the Elite Four. Let me know your final comments on this team down below. Let's do this. I decided to start with Chantal first. Chantal is probably the least intimidating member of the Elite Four for this team. That isn't saying much though, considering how I don't really have a solid counter for ghost types. Also, on a side note, I really love Chantal's design in this game so much. The battle starts off with Cofagrigus versus Maria. Maria opens with a light screen while she gets burned by Will-O-Wisp. I hard swap to Lathe as she gets hit with a grass knot. Lathe sets up a workup and then goes for Crunch and almost one-shots the Cofagrigus, but it survives on a sliver of health. For some reason, Cofagrigus is refusing to go for Will-O-Wisp on Lathe. I knew Chantal would go for the full restore, so I had Lathe use another workup. Lathe then was able to one-shot the Cofagrigus with Crunch. She also one-shot the Golurk with a Crunch, but goes down to Chandelure after it burned Lathe with a Fire Blast. Lathe was about to sweep her whole team. Just my luck. Constance is up and Chantal heals the Chandelure with the full restore as Constance sets up a Calm Mind. She tanks the Shadow Ball and deals a good amount of damage to Chandelure with the Air Slash before going down. This is not going well for me. Chie is next and she paralyzes the Chandelure. Chie sets up a charge, then uses Wild Charge to drop the Chandelure. Last up is Jellicent, who Chie almost one-shots with the Wild Charge before going down. Nino comes in and finishes up the battle with Leaf Blade. That was way too close. It's amazing how one burn can flip an entire battle on its head. Next up, I decided to do Marshall because he is the scariest member of the Elite Four matchup-wise for my team. Maria, CJ, and Lathe are all weak to fighting type moves, and all of Marshall's team knows Stone Edge, which Constance and Nino want nothing to do with. That means 5 out of my 6 members do little to nothing against this team. This is gonna be a rough one. The Marshall battle starts off with Throw versus Chie. Chie opens up with a Thunder Wave, and Throw hits a nasty bulldoze to drop Chie well below half. Chie hard swaps out to Constance on the next bulldoze. Constance sets up Calm Mind as Throw gets fully paralyzed. She then hits a hard Psychic to almost one-shot the Throw, but gets one-shot herself to a Stone Edge. Terrible start. I send in Nino as Marshall goes for the full restore. I have Nino set up a Swords Dance. Nino goes for Leaf Blade and dodges the Stone Edge that 100% would have one-shot her. She takes down the Throw the next turn. Next up is Sock, who Nino takes down to 1 HP as it lives on Sturdy. Nino tanks the Stone Edge, surviving on 16 HP, and brings Sock back down to 1 HP. Again, after Marshall uses another full restore. Nino finishes it off the next turn though. Next up is Conkeldurr, and Nino one-shots it with a crit Leaf Blade. Last is Mienshao, and Nino outspeeds it and one-shots it with a Leaf Blade. That was incredible. If Nino did not crit that Conkeldurr, this battle would have gone a different way. Third is Grimsley, and the battle opens up with Scrafty versus Constance. Constance opens up with an Air Slash and flinches the Scrafty. She takes a Crunch and hits another Air Slash to bring it down to red health, and then goes down, giving it the Moxie boost. Nino is next, and she sets up a Swords Dance as Grimsley uses the full restore. Nino uses X Scissor and does a large chunk of damage. She gets poisoned though on the poison jab, and another full restore is used. She takes it down with a couple Leaf Blades and goes down to poison. Once again, another bad start for us. It's Maria versus Liepard next. Maria tanks Night Slashes as she Toxic Stalls the Liepard with a Toxic. Once the Reflect is up, Liepard cannot touch Maria. I hard swap to Lathe, who takes even less damage from Liepard, and she starts setting up workups due to the low damage she's taking. Lathe gets to +3 attack as Liepard goes down to poison. Crocodile is next, and it gets the Intimidate off on Lathe, but that doesn't matter, because she was going to be using Surf anyways. Also, why is Grimsley's entire team all female? What's up with that? Lathe tanks an EQ from Crocodile and takes it down with 1 crit Surf. Last is Bisharp, and Lathe uses the Surf to deal about a third of damage. She goes down the next turn after bringing Bisharp down to red health. I send in Chie, who outspeeds and drops the Bisharp with a Flame Charge. For some reason, all of these battles have opened up really poorly for me, but with some great plays, I was able to turn them around and pull off some big wins. 3 members down, 1 to go. Last up is Caitlyn, and she opens up with Reuniclus versus Maria. I forgot that Reuniclus doesn't take damage from status moves, so when I poisoned the Reuniclus, nothing happened. I get a light screen up and hard swap to Nino. Nino tanks a Focus Blast and sets up a Swords Dance. Nino gets a second Swords Dance up and proceeds to one-shot Reuniclus with X Scissor, Sigilyph with X Scissor, Musharna with X Scissor, and Gothitelle with X Scissor. That was an easy fight through and through. Nino's the MVP of this Elite Four for sure. She's been putting in so much work. With the Elite Four out of the way, we can move on to the championship battle. Or that's what I would like to say, but now it's time for the 2 hardest battles in the entire game. First up is the final N fight. Before we take on N, we have to capture Reshiram. I capture it with the Master Ball and throw it in the PC, because it's just not good enough to be on the PU tiered team. And the final battle with N begins. The final battle with N is underway, and after being a total pushover the entire game, N is no longer messing around. This fight is brutal. The battle starts off with Zekrom versus Maria. Zekrom hits a very hard fusion bolt and drops Maria well below half health. Maria poisons the Zekrom, and I hard swap to Chie. Chie takes massive damage from fusion bolt and sets up a charge. Zekrom goes for Giga Impact and drops Chie. As Zekrom needs to recharge, I send in CJ, and she goes for Acid Armor. It's a risky play, I know, but I need CJ for other members of N's team. CJ drops the Zekrom next turn with an Ice Beam. N sends out Clean Clang and I swap in Lathe. Lathe gets the Intimidate off and sets up a workup after dodging the Focus Blast. She sets up a second workup after dodging a second Focus Blast. Clean Clang almost one-shots Lathe with the third Focus Blast as she hits it with a Surf. Turns out though, it wasn't Clean Clang, it was a Zoroark who had tanked the Surf and takes down Lathe in a couple turns after missing another Focus Blast. Had I anticipated the Zoroark, Lathe could have killed with a takedown there. How could I have forgotten that N disguises his Zoroark as a Clean Clang? I actually feel embarrassed by that. Nino is next, as N full restores. Nino gets one shot to a Fire Blast. At this point we've already lost, but I'm going down swinging. Maria is next and lands the Attract. Zoroark pushes through and takes down Maria with a couple Night Slashes after taking a little poison damage. Lathe is up and she takes down Zoroark with a takedown. The real Clean Clang is next and drops Lathe with a Hyper Beam. Constance is up and she goes down to a crit Thunderbolt. CJ is last and goes down to a Flash Cannon. That went very poorly. This fight took forever to pull off, it seems. I don't want to overlevel, but I just cannot get things to fall in my favor. Zekrom, Zoroark, and Clean Clang are massive problems for my team. I have no reliable way to deal with Steel, Dark, and Dragon types. I need CJ alive for this fight, as a lot of N's team struggles with Ice types. Even on attempts where I freeze the Zekrom turn 1, I cannot get Zekrom to stay frozen long enough for me to punish it. Let's just skip to the better run. Third attempt, and this happens. We open up with Zekrom versus CJ. CJ tanks a Fusion Bolt and hits a massive Avalanche to take it to low health. N full restores the Zekrom as CJ goes for an Ice Beam to take it to low again. CJ goes down to a Giga Impact. I send in Constance and she Calm Minds as Zekrom needs to recharge. She takes down Zekrom next turn with Psychic. Vanillux is next and I have Constance go for Psychic and drop it to under half health before she gets one shot to a Blizzard. I send in Chie, who does nothing with a flame charge and goes down to low health from a blizzard. Chie takes down Vanillix the next turn and gets up to +2 speed, and sends in Kling Klang next. I believe that this is the real Kling Klang, so I leave Chie in and hit a flame charge for decent damage. Kling Klang misses a hyper beam and allows Chie to paralyze it. Kling Klang gets fully paralyzed that same turn, which lets Chie drop it to under half health before going down to a hyper beam. I follow up with Lathe and have her use Work Up as Kling Klang recharges. I get greedy here and go for a second Work Up, as I don't trust Lathe to drop Kling Klang with Surf from that range. Kling Klang has about 25% of its health left, and Lathe has a non-existent special attack stat. Lathe tanks the Hyper Beam and goes for another Work Up to get to +3. Lathe then drops the Kling Klang with a Surf. Zoroark is next, and Lathe goes down to low health from a Focus Blast. Why doesn't N ever miss his low accuracy moves anymore? Zoroark goes down to a takedown, which also drops Lathe. Caracosta is next, and I send in Maria. Maria gets the Attract off. Maria then sets up a Reflect and Toxic, while Caracosta loses almost all of its turns to Attraction. Incredible RNG. Caracosta got one Stone Edge off, but he missed it, as Maria was able to completely Toxic stall it. Archeops is last, and all I need to do is get that thing below half health to proc its Defeatist ability and cripple it. Maria gets the Attract off and then the Toxic next turn, as Archeops loses its turn to Attraction. This is big. Archeops misses the next Stone Edge, then the next turn connects the second one to drop Maria to under half health. Archeops takes more Toxic damage. It's so close to being under half health. Next turn, Archeops hits Acrobatics, but Maria survived on 1 HP and Archeops drops below to under half health. This is so close. Archeops loses a turn to Love, drops to red from Poison, and it gets taken down by Maria next turn from poison damage. Maria soloed N's final team members to get us the win against N. That was a crazy tough battle. It took a lot of good RNG, but we pulled it off. Last up is the final boss of the game, Ghetsis. If you thought the N battle was tough, you haven't seen anything yet. The Ghetsis battle opens up with Cofagrigus versus CJ. Look, I'm just gonna say it here and now. Ghetsis battle theme in Pokemon Black and White is pure ass. It's not good at all. It's just drums with an occasional choir. If you think that the Ghetsis theme in this game is good, you probably think Breath of the Wild had an incredible soundtrack also. Nah, Breath of the Wild catching a random stray in a Pokemon challenge video is crazy. This battle was brutal. It made N look so easy. The battle starts off with CJ hitting an Ice Beam on Cofagrigus for half damage as she gets poisoned by Toxic. CJ takes it down a couple turns later with Ice Beam. Next up is Hydreigon. Oh boy, here it comes. Hydreigon drops CJ with a Focus Blast. Half of Hydreigon's moves are low accuracy, yet, as you will see, Ghetsis Hydreigon will proceed to not miss a single one. Whatever. I send in Chie. Chie takes more than half from a Dragon Pulse, and she paralyzes Hydreigon. Chie then goes for Wild Charge, which does nothing. Chie can't do anything against this thing. So, it's a slow struggle until she goes down. Maria is next, and she gets the Attract off. Maria sets up screens as Hydreigon loses a couple turns to Love. Here's the problem. Maria has no attacking moves. She only has Toxic, Attract, Light Screen, and Reflect. With Hydreigon paralyzed, Maria has no means of damaging it, so I have to hard swap out. I send in Nino, who tanks the Focus Blast and sets up a Swords Dance as Hydreigon loses a turn to Paralysis, as she one-shots it with X-Scissor. Ghetsis sends in Electros. It barely survives a Leaf Blade and drops Nino with a single Acrobatics. I send in Constance to try and outspeed it. Ghetsis full restores Electros as Constance does a little bit in a Psychic and goes down with Wild Charge. This is getting out of hand fast. I send in Maria next, and she goes for Attract after tanking almost half from a wild charge. I should have went for Toxic here, but instead I waited a turn to do so. So that means Electros got another attack off. Maria takes down Electros with poison damage, as Ghetsis sends in Bouffalant next, and it drops Maria with a couple head charges after pushing through Attraction. Layth is last, and she sets up a couple workups. She had Reflect up, helping her take less damage from the head charges, but once the Reflect dropped, so did Layth. Layth took down Bouffalant with a crunch, but Seismitoad comes in and finishes off Layth. All in all, that wasn't a terrible attempt, but a couple minor misplays sunk me. I need to play out of my mind in order to pull this off without having to overlevel. Can I do it? Only one way to find out, right? Fourth attempt, and this happens. We open up with Layth versus Cofagrigus. Layth starts with a workup, as I know the Toxic and Protect combo is coming. Sure enough, it did, and Layth was able to get to +2 attack and special attack. Cofagrigus gets the double Protect, unfortunately, but a crunch from Layth the next turn drops it in one shot. Hydreigon is next. Layth drops to a Focus Blast from it. Chie is up, and she survives a Dragon Pulse to land a Thunder Wave on the Hydreigon. I hard swap to CJ, who dodges the Focus Blast that 100% would have one-shot her. She then outspeeds the Hydreigon and almost one-shots it. However, Hydreigon misses a second Focus Blast, which Ghetsis says that he was expecting exactly that. Ghetsis heals the Hydreigon, and CJ drops it to low health with an Ice Beam. CJ's luck still runs hot though, as she tanks the Focus Blast and drops Hydreigon with an Ice Beam. Absolutely insane performance from CJ. Bisharp is next, and I swap to Chie. Chie gets the Thunder Wave off as she goes down to a Stone Edge. I send in Maria next and get the Attract off. Maria sets up Reflect, and I hard swap out to Nino. Nino sets up a couple sword dances as Bisharp gets fully paralyzed. I'm playing with fire at this point, as one Stone Edge will deal a ton of damage to Nino if it doesn't one-shot her to begin with. Nino gets hit by the Stone Edge the next turn, and because of the Reflect Maria setup, Nino is able to survive with little over half health and one-shot Bisharp with X Scissor. Nino wasn't done with her rampage though. No. She proceeded to one-shot the Electros, Seismitoad, and Bouffalant to defeat Ghetsis and finish Pokemon Black version using only PU tiered Pokemon. That was a tough challenge. Much harder than my Pokemon Platinum using only NU tiered Pokemon. The lack of diverse Pokemon available in PU tier to be caught in Black and White made our roster options limited, and with no true wall anywhere to be found, teams with powerhouses on them, like Ens and Ghetsis teams, turned into nightmares. I had a ton of fun playing this challenge, and I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. I would highly recommend you try this challenge yourself. Despite a brutal endgame, this challenge was so much fun. If you like this video and want to see more, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stick around for the next video I make, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out. I also go live 3 times a week and would love to see you stop by and say hi. All in all, I would say that the MVP for this challenge would probably be either Maria or Nino. Both Mons are incredible for this challenge, and without them, I don't know if this challenge would have been possible without having to overlevel. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on the team are and how you thought the challenge went. What might you have done differently? With that being said, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you as always for watching. Whether you watched a little bit of this video or the entire video, your support means a lot to me. Until next time, bye for now everyone.